Okay, since it's quarter past, I am going to get going. We have a quorum. Okay. The City Council Committee on Public Health, Safety, and Environment, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, will meet remotely on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the purposes of discussing with the Salem Police Department the recent crimes in the city. Pursuant to Government Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This subcommittee meeting will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the city's website at www.salem.com. No in-person attendance of members or of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive recording of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch, listen, or provide comment during the meeting may do so in the following manner. Please click on the link below to join the webinar. The link is posted on salem.com. Go to the website, www.zoom.us/join, enter webinar ID 889-9601-3448, followed by the meeting password 730920. By telephone, participants can dial a toll-free number at 877-853-5257 or 888-475-4499. When prompted, enter meeting webinar ID 889-9601-3448 and follow the instructions to join the meeting. The City Council Committee on Public Health, Safety, and Environment co-posted with the Committee of the Whole meeting remotely via Zoom on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the purposes of discussing the matters listed below. Notice of this meeting was posted on March 1st, 2021 at 4:35 p.m. This meeting is being recorded, and in attendance from the committee, we have myself, Councilor Dominguez, Councilor Presnewski, Councilor Marcillo, and I believe we have gotten Councilor Dibble as well.
Yes, I'm here. Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we have a full committee, and members of the whole, we have Councilor Hapworth, Councilor Turiel, President Madore, Councilor Flynn, Councilor McCarthy. I think I got everyone. Yes. Okay, and also joining us tonight, we have Acting Chief of Police Dennis King and Mayor Driscoll. No one absent. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Public Health, Safety, and Environment meeting of 2021, and the first meeting that I am chair of. Since this is the first meeting, I think it's a good time to take just 1 minute to briefly discuss some standards for our meetings for this year, especially since we're still meeting virtually and we're kind of all together yet alone. So it's important to remember the respect that we have for each other, our guests, and our constituents. We also need to remember to respect each other's time. On that note, I think it's important for us to all come to these meetings prepared. Did I mention Zoom fatigue earlier? So I think that's also important to acknowledge, and to have constructive conversations. I think it's important to keep those conversations flowing. So I may request a motion to continue a meeting if we're, going a little long. So I think we all hit that Zoom fatigue wall at some point. And most importantly, I think we need to make sure that we listen to each other and the members of the public, although depending on how many do wish to speak, I may choose to overall limit the amount of time for each speaking. And that's really all that I had. Is there any feedback, or does anybody have anything that they would like to add? Or are we all in agreement? Okay, awesome. Sounds good. So moving on to the order of this evening, I will read the order from Councilor Dibble that the Public Health, Safety, and Environment co-posted with the Committee of the Whole meet immediately with the Salem Police to discuss the recent string of violent crimes throughout Salem, what police are doing to stop it from continuing, and share what they can do on successes that they have on each matter, what additional resources are needed, and how can the council and all residents assist. So that was the order. And so my goal for this evening's meeting is to provide and promote transparency between the work being done in the police department with the city council and members of the public. And as I mentioned earlier, acting chief of police, Dennis King has joined us, and he has put a lot of time and effort into a presentation for us tonight, which we will be walking through. Also joining us is Mayor Driscoll for any questions we may have for her. After the presentation, I'll open it up to questions from members of the committee. After that, open it up to members from the committee as a whole, and then open it up to questions or comments from those in the public attending this evening. Sound good? So, Dennis, if you are ready to go, if you are good with jumping into the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just some comments to start with before I get into the presentation, if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me. I'd also like to thank the rest of the City Council for formally recognizing the police department's commitment to the community back in September. That was a great morale boost and recognition for the department. I wanted to say thank you for that. So I want to start by saying every crime police officers and detectives investigate are taken seriously, and we all take them personally. We take them personally because we are the ones tasked with protecting and serving the community and making people feel safe when they walk the streets of our neighborhoods, they visit our thriving downtown, just passing through, or sleeping in your homes. When people are fearful, everyone at the department works at addressing those fears. However, there are many factors that the police cannot control that affect crime in our city, but our residents can. This is where building trust between the community and its police force is of vital importance. The incidents that you've brought me here for tonight and have raised your concerns are unacceptable. As you'll hear this evening, our investigations have determined that most violent incidents occurring in our city have involved specific individuals and specific criminal acts, rather than random criminal acts against random individuals. This is important because by identifying the problem and knowing who's involved, we're able to develop strategies to focus our efforts in making Salem a safe place to live, work, and visit. The fear of crime, especially amongst the elderly, is often greater than actual crime in a community. I've said that oftentimes. And working towards reducing fear is sometimes harder than solving the crimes themselves. I hope our discussion tonight will provide insight and strategies to reduce the fear and stop these types of crimes from happening within the community. So, Madam Chair, if you want, if I can share now, I'll jump in and I will share screen. All right, so let's go with Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna minimize my screen so that I can get the whole screen, and then I'm gonna put on the slideshow. I think that in the interest of the information that I'm providing, there's about 26 slides that we can digest the information and I think follow it up after. If there's something pressing during it, I suppose we could bring it to our attention, but I think in context of what I'm trying to just give as an analysis of what's going on and the like, I think it might just be better to let me plow through this. I sometimes speak a little fast. Feel free at any time to slow me down. All right, so Salem solves problems together. The mission of the Salem Police Department is something that I take very seriously. Over the years, the mission has expanded, and that is because society has demanded it. So the mission is to enforce laws, protect individual rights, lives, and properties, arrest those in need of arresting, cite those who need citing, assist those who need assisting in order to improve public safety for everyone, reduce crime in our community, and diminish the fear of crime. We'll utilize problem-solving strategies that focus on crime prevention, dispute resolution, and foster enhanced communication, cooperation, and involvement within the community. We will treat people with dignity and respect and deliver the highest standards of police service and assistance to all. We will do this with pride in our profession and with professionalism worthy of the badge. We all believe that. Every one of us that are in this police department understand and acknowledge that mission statement. So I know that you've all, or many of you have seen what our calls for service look like over the years. And I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what the numbers of calls that we go to each year, and just a little bit of the breakdown. I won't go over them individually, but you can see from FY19 to FY20 that we had a reduction in the calls for service. And that is clearly and obviously because of COVID and the reduced interactions within the community, but still a solid, strong number. And I'm going to go over the crime data a little bit more as in detail, so I won't talk about that here. But you can see things like neighborhood meetings. We've increased quite a bit I think to the benefit of Zoom in many ways, that we really had access that was readily available to the command staff, to the units themselves, the officers. All right, so basis of the council order, why we're here. So I'm just going to do a breakdown of the incidents specifically that we're talking about, and then I'm going to look at the crime data as it relates to the city and the state, and I did add a little bit into our perhaps some other communities that are equal to ours in demographics. So as you're concerned about the shooting incidents that we've had, the department is not just concerned, but dedicated to not only investigating and holding people accountable, but also to make sure that if there are efforts that we can to make them not happen, we're doing it. So from 2018 to today, we did have a total of 11 incidents where we've had an identified victim involving a firearm. 7 of those incidents had injuries. In 4 no injuries, we've had no deaths. We've identified 10 suspects out of the 11. We have identified common connections of drugs, firearms, and gang associations amongst the suspects. 5 resulted in charges brought, and 6 are open pending hopeful, and I mean hopeful, victim witness cooperations. Cases are still being investigated in cooperation with state, local, and federal police agencies. Salem has had an average of 3 shootings per year over the last 4 years. We know that in 19, 20, and 21, we've identified this upward trend. There's no random acts here that we can tell. Isolated incidents where suspect and victim are associated with one another in some way. I'll just say that that is different than random violent street crimes, such as robbery, unarmed or armed, and purse snatchings, which are not trending upward. This is something that is not either proud nor it's just a statement. We have had 3 murders since 2013. That's 8 years. We've not had one since 2016. We want 0, but this is a talk about violent crime, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. What I'm going to do in the side aheads, I'm just going to go over some data, maybe some data overload, and I apologize for that, but I think it is important to understand it because data is what drives us oftentimes, and quite frankly, it is what drives us to identify crime trends. So in 2019 and 2020, overall crime did not change in Salem. That is something very interesting about our city. Our crime rates generally stay the same. Statewide data shows a drop in crime in the Commonwealth. Property crime is up, and that's mostly likely to do, it's not most likely, it is due to an increase in identity fraud cases. And that was, we had a massive rush of unemployment claims due to COVID. Our aggravated assault is up 5%. Our weapon offenses have also increased. I'll show you that robbery is down 29%, purse snatching. Again, a street level crime. We've had 2 in the last 5 years. And so those percentages are something that we can look at, but we don't have a lot of incidents. And so a few incidents here or there can sway both up and down. I just want to make that point. This is important, all of these, because it dictates our strategies and paints a picture of random and violent acts a community member would likely face. So that's important. These are the acts. Our crime talks about what types of actions that have been depicted recently that a community member will likely face, right? So these are different than random violent street crimes, which are not up. So this is just a breakdown. I apologize from left to right if it goes in the opposite order, but you can see in January of 2021 how many incidents, and this is total number of crimes in the city. That's both property and person. And what is very common amongst our crime data is that we're very consistent. I identified in November, you'd say, geez, I would think that October would be our jump, but in November was our jump, and that was because we had 114 of the fraud claims on unemployment. So this is a talk more specifically about violent crime, but I am gonna talk about property a little bit. But I just wanted you to look at this slide. So this talks about where we have been in 18, 19, and 20, and it shows the numbers that I identified a little bit earlier, that our aggravated assaults are up, our weapon offenses are up, our robberies are down, our drug-related offenses are down. And when we talk about the whys of that, our drug-related offenses are down. In COVID, our interactions with individuals decreased dramatically, right? So that is probably one of the factors in that. You can see, again, that these are the things that we need to talk about. And when I was putting this together with my team, these are the things that we are working on every day, but to capture it in a statistical way and an analysis way, it really does point to where we need to go. And just a little bit of a look at our crimes against the property. So vandalism we show to be down, burglary was down, shoplifting was down. I've identified fraud and identity is up. And then our general larcenies were about the same. And that is because COVID made 2020 a different year for us. And not clearly a different year for everyone, but its effect on crimes was seen here in Salem. And just a little bit of data that is putting those last few slides into perspective overall. So we see there's crime against the person, crime against property, and crime against society. Those are the measures that we have. And so overall, crime was the same in 2019 versus 2020 and almost identically. We see property crime is up, and as a whole, we see person crime is down. This here, I just wanted you to take a look at when we talk about crimes of violence, act of violence, assault and batteries, and the like, that what that looks like in Salem. So you can see that simple assault and intimidation, those are our greatest numbers. And in terms of crimes against the person, we would expect that. And then robbery and aggravated assault, obviously less. You can see the red really identified as robbery, that we have, low numbers traditionally every year. But as noted, we can see that increase in the aggravated assaults. That again is something that identifies perhaps a need to focus on. I broke that down to aggravated assaults and robberies just to take a look for our monthly data on how this works. So I'm throwing a lot at you. I guess that when you look at the incidents, the vertical axis there, we're looking at probably a high of 11 in a month, which is, again, 11 too many. But that's just a look about how our crime fluctuates on a monthly basis and the types of things that we're talking about, from aggravated assault and robbery. Right, so if I didn't confuse you, I'm just going to tell you that crime data can be confusing. And there's a lot of ways that that you can analyze crime data, crime rates, number of incidents, comparisons to other communities. I'm just recognizing here that our NIBRS data is something that we do a particularly good job at entering. Captain Barrowby has been doing it for about 8 years now, and we capture crime data through the National Incident-Based Reporting System, and we do it probably as well as anybody in the Commonwealth. And so this just kind of identifies the different types of crimes when we talk about part 1 and part 2. And then an index crime is basically those common crimes that every analysis will look at. And a little bit about aggravated assault and simple assault, what the difference is. We're talking about the type of injury, and we are usually talking about whether a weapon is used. So an aggravated assault could be somebody that was yielding a knife and assaulted somebody by means, but not necessarily had actually, stabbed somebody. And it would be categorized aggravated assault, whereas a simple, fist fight, more than likely a simple assault. And then the weapon law violation. So just a little bit of a definition there. So in talking, I think it is important because everybody wants to know, relatively speaking, what's going on in Salem as it relates to the Commonwealth and perhaps other communities. So when we look at the state data, there was a significant increase in aggravated assaults. And in this particular case, it's identifying assaults without weapons, but still, so perhaps an assault that resulted in a serious injury, but did not have a weapon involved. So you can see that the state aggravated assault was up, and you can see that for a while, 2018 and 19, we were starting to see downward trends. And, I've done a lot of look at what COVID has on crime, and it's really something very difficult to quantify right now. But we know that there is effect on it, and obviously intimate partner relationships. There are factors that are related to COVID that have identified why this increase is here. So I'm just identifying it as a state level. And then I'm just going to show you what that looks like in comparison to us on a couple different quantifiers here. So aggravated assault with a firearm by year, and this just is identifying ours over the last, since 2013. So we can see years that we've had some areas where, we had signs of and indicators of higher incidents, and how we had a downward trend, which is somewhat similar to the Commonwealth. And then that we had an identified increase here, and so did the Commonwealth, right? So this is just talking about where we are in relation to the Commonwealth. This is with knives. So the same type of indicators here. We saw a rise and increase, and so did the Commonwealth. So this is a tough one. And I think that what I'll never do is allow myself to degrade another community by comparing our rates to theirs. Listen, we work hard with all of our communities locally. Everybody has a different socioeconomic situation going on. And so what I want to say is that when partner agencies ask for help, we're there for them, and vice versa. And so I can give you some look at what that city comparison looks like, but I'll stay away from the comparisons themselves. So, this is kind of a self-explanatory slide. And this is number of offenses. So this is not crime rate, this is number of offenses. You see those communities there, Haverhill, us, Cambridge, Framingham, and Fitchburg, just talking about size, perhaps a university president and the like. Another heavy, big slide here that I'll just talk about briefly, right? So this is number of crimes per incident, and you can see where we are in relation to some of these other communities. And this is where I'll talk about, when you talk about number of crimes and reporting, we have to be mindful when we're comparing data with other communities. We're relying on them being as efficient as Captain Barabee. And what I can tell you is that we do a very good job on it, and I can't account for other communities. So what I do know is what our data that goes out is good, solid data. So when we do this comparisons, please take that into consideration as well. All right, and I'm just, again, pointing out this is number of incidents. And when we talk about, this past year, I had identified where our total number of crimes in that November was for those identity frauds. And that's how much one can increase just based on a particular month or a type of incident, as we had with the unemployment fraud. All right, so we went through the data. I hope you have an idea, and we can go back to that if you'd like, but I just wanted to go a little bit through the data. So what we do to provide a safe and secure community. So what's the data? The data tells us where to go, gives us an idea. So we have to come up with the strategies. And I say we, that means myself, the department, the mayor, the city council, our community members, our stakeholders, everybody. So there are traditional and non-traditional policing strategies, and there's efforts to build trust and legitimacy with residents. And we take both of those to great degrees. So if you're wondering how we operate at SPD, I'm just going to break that down really quick. So our patrol division maintain the day-to-day response for calls. They're professional, motivated, and dedicated to the community. Most of our crime is identified and addressed by patrol. Serious crimes are then passed on to our Criminal Investigation Division for follow-up. Our CID handles all major cases and investigations to include violent and property crimes and drug offenses, work with outside agencies to better address serious crime trends, and share intelligence. In 2020, they took 0.5 kilo of illicit drugs off the streets, made numerous arrests involving firearm and narcotic violations, and continue to be the model investigative unit on the North Shore. Our Community Impact Unit addresses quality of life issues such as graffiti, loitering, and public drinking, to name a few, in an effort to keep more serious crimes from happening. They are our eyes and ears on the street every day. They work with SPD mental health, substance use, and homeless outreach workers to provide support to vulnerable groups and address illicit activity. That's a small paragraph for a lot of work that they do. Our Traffic Division provides traffic enforcement throughout the city. They recently were recognized as issuing the second highest citations for the hands-free law. They lead our traffic coordination for major events, and they can interdict serious crime. So there are car stops that result in, drug arrests and different illicit activity as well. We continue to sustain strong relationships and build trust with the community, as evidenced by our annual resident survey and the recent the Race Equity Task Force survey that showed high satisfaction ratings and does every year. We regularly participate in NIAC, PNA, and other neighborhood organization meetings, which I don't know the number, but I would say it's upward to 25. Always looking to break down barriers and improve participation in the Race Equity Task Force. Longstanding relations with stakeholders such as Lightbridge, Plummer Youth Promise, and the Council on Aging, implementing the recent criminal justice reform legislation as well. We are every day working with agencies and entities. I can give you an example of Lightbridge, an unbelievable partner that we've been able to provide in COVID services to our at-risk and vulnerable population to an unbelievable degree. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So we take it personal. All of the aforementioned efforts anchor us when addressing crime, in particular violent crimes. That may occur within our community. In the first 2 months of 2021, we had a spate of violent activity that we are working to address and respond to as a police department and a community. No one wants this type of activity gaining a foothold in our city. Important considerations on these incidents with respect to these activities. Many of the suspects have been apprehended. In the last 2 incidents, within 3 days, they were charged. 3 individuals, both of the shootings. Individuals involved in these activities were known to each other. This was not random acts of violence. And individuals had a history of firearm and drug-related charges against them. And I'm just talking specifically to what has been tasked to me in the last couple months. So you say, Dennis, what do we do now? So I'm going to give you some specific actions to be taken now. We continue our efforts to build trust with community stakeholders through neighborhood meetings, information share, identify and reduce the fear of crime neighborhood by neighborhood, use accurate data, and communicate. That's what this is about right now. We're using accurate data. We're communicating so that we can work with our neighbors and our residents. Enhance police presence in neighborhoods where criminal activity is being reported by all divisions in the strategic task force, our detectives. So we do have a strategic task force that is specific to this type of street crime. They'll be active. I'll go over a couple more things that we're going to do. Work with residents in these neighborhoods to identify strategies we can implement together to be more proactive. Publicizing and sharing anonymous tips lines, contact numbers to report information. Create forums for officer and citizen engagement. Reestablish monthly landlord meetings with police, health, and inspectional services personnel to open up a constant line of communication. Discuss best practices for managing landlord-tenant relations. Address quality of life concerns and beautification efforts. This meeting should include large landlords and voucher holders, such as the North Shore CDC and the Salem Housing Authority. Very effective collaboratives here. Utilize the On-Point building at Palmer Cove for residents to learn about community policing efforts by SPD and provide access to agencies focused on youth-based initiatives. And we are starting to formulate some of those as I speak. Warrant sweeps, working with Mass State Police warrant teams and our detectives. Enhance efforts on weekends. So we traditionally have a strategy that I'm not going to give everybody an idea exactly what that strategy is, but we're going to enhance our efforts. Increase SPD participation in state and federal drug and or gang units as done in the past. We have a strong relationship with these units and we are better for it. Enhance surveillance activity through technology. Use crime data analysis, mapping, and intelligence to identify hotspots for enforcement. Continue specialized training in drug interdiction operations. We have a couple new detectives that are going to all of these schools to better enhance our ability to respond. Hold those responsible accountable for their actions. Work with the district attorney on submitting the strongest cases possible, and continue follow-up with our victim service officer. So our victim service officer can often be the key to a case in making sure that the victim feels secure and able to speak with us and speak with the district attorney going forward. And Officer Zarin does a great job in that. And when I say the district attorney on submitting strong cases, we are hand in hand with them working cases, and we have good results. Salem's community needs to come together and be transparent, communicate, and inclusive. SPD encourages members of the council, residents, and others to reach out with any concern. This is a distressing time for many people. COVID has created economic hardships, mental health crisis among many, along with the lack of socialization and normalcy that comes from interacting with other people. We're all there. It's been a long year and we're close to resembling some form of new normal, I hope. At times like this, we need our community to come together. We shouldn't be turning on each other or stoking fear. We should be rallying to support each other, not jumping to conclusions or characterizing criminal activity before investigations haven't even begun. Misinformation and disinformation can actually harm investigative efforts. Be patient and know that the Salem Police Department takes each and every violent crime seriously and works day in and day out to keep our community safe. With trust in the Salem Police Department by our citizens, the mayor, and the council, we'll be able to address an increase in criminal activity when it happens. I'm certain of it. I ask all members of the city council to support the strategies I just talked about, and I thank you all for your time. So I don't know, Madam Chair, if you want me to stop sharing, or do you want me?
Yes, yeah. If you could stop sharing so we could all see each other again.
All right.
And again, I want to say thank you. That was a very thorough presentation with a lot of data. And yes, crime data is confusing. So thank you for setting that up and putting it in a way that for me was much more digestible and easy to understand. I also really appreciate the narratives after the data, because I'm always asking what's the data, but I don't really understand what crime data says. So I really appreciate the translations that you had in there, and what the plans are, what your goals are, what you're working towards, and what you're working on now. And also I think that last slide was very important to reiterate about the transparency and the communication. I guess I would kick it off with questions. Really, I just had two quick questions that you kind of touched on, but I wanted to kind of reiterate. Mostly, especially during information sharing during the time of COVID, it is really hard, and I saw that that's one of your goals to increase information sharing with our community. Are there any ideas or strategies that you have found helpful, or that you could use help with during the time of COVID? You know, during these like times where it's so hard to have like big community meetings in a meeting hall or anything like that. So if there's any way council or we could help with that, or myself, I would love to learn about that. And then also just how we can help with citizen engagement. What are some tools or ideas there?
So I think that we have benefited in some ways by Zoom and remoting in. It seems to me that we have increased participation in many of these meetings. And so the direct strategies are to get out to our neighborhood organizations. And like I said, neighborhood by neighborhood, go to the meetings and say, this is what we're seeing here. What are you seeing? And then engaging and pulling in information, right? So the community impact unit has, a very specific goal. Take information in, right? Come up with a plan to solve problems and then enact it with the community. So, we are going to increase those efforts. We have some positive things going forward. So we might even be kicking off our new website tomorrow. A little bit different flavor to it, but we're always soliciting, input from any way possible. In terms of communication, we've really started to lock down our involvement in the Code Red notification system as well. We've all been trained. We don't just rely on the city, specifically the city workers to do it. So we're really bringing it as part of our communication efforts. But I would say that it is hard to do face-to-face and not have the feeling and emotion of somebody when you're trying to really talk about problems that are bothering people, and that is often lost and remote. We have a facility that, you know, we still can entertain and have entertained small groups to get more of a feel of what's going on, and we can continue to do that under COVID restrictions. We have an auditorium, we have some space, we've done that. But we will continue to work those efforts and then use whatever mean that the city has for us to allow to share information and the like. And I think that we've been doing that and we'll continue to work towards that.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to members of the committee for any questions. Councillor Marcillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Acting Chief King. I have a couple of questions that I want to take one at a time, if that's okay. My first question, Chief King, does your family feel safe in Salem?
They do. I don't live in Salem, but they do. So I can tell you that my wife and I frequent in the downtown regularly, and I have a daughter, 2 daughters and a son, junior in high school. And she's down here constantly engaging in all of the activity and the fun that it exists. So yes, they do. You know, I think that you're more probably asking if we live here, if we feel safe there. But I'm going to tell you that absent of living here, my family absolutely feels and frequents the city without reservation.
Thank you. I have to say, over the past couple of weeks, I've been kind of appalled by the conversations on social media regarding the incidents that have been happening. Some comments in particular, I would love to get your opinion on. One, the comment that strikes me the most is some people feel that they need to get a gun permit to protect their family because of how unsafe they feel in Salem. Can you directly address those residents and, yeah, just address that issue?
So I think that the constitutional right to have a firearm, if that's your choice, then I think it's a personal choice and I would support it. We have, you know, a licensing process that if that is what you've determined is your own belief on it, then I would support it. We do, again, we have a process you have to go through and you have to be able to obtain one. But I would say that if you're doing it because of what's happened and what we've been hearing in some of these narratives, I would say, you know, have a deeper conversation of whether or not you feel that in general, you need to go get your license to carry and have a gun. Because I would say, as I identified, we have had 11 incidents in 2 years in almost 3 years. And those are out of almost 100,000 incidents we respond to. And I would say that if that is your reason, the random act, and you're feeling as if it's a random act and you walk on the street and you might have to protect yourself, I don't believe that exists at all. I think that these are incidents that are focused on individuals that know each other, perhaps up to other activity that is illicit, and resolve conflict in the worst possible way. And so I don't feel, I guess I'm trying to be a little bit neutral on this. I don't feel that if you are basing it on just these last couple weeks of narrative, I would ask that you use some of what I've talked about today in terms of data and fear of crime versus actual crime to help with that decision.
Thank you. And then I wanted to ask you, what do you need from us as leaders in Salem, both during events, while there's police activity going on, while the investigation is going on, and then afterwards as a community? Can you give us some specific actions that we could do as leaders, or what the expectation is from you?
I can give you a good example. There was a house fire the other day, and the Salem Fire Department did a great job. And there was some information that was shared, and I'd imagine that would allow for people to have some information what was going on, but allowing the fire department to do their job. And then afterwards, the accolades that came for doing such a good job is what we hope and what we are looking for, if that's in fact what we did. We are charged with, especially the incidents that we're talking about, we are the responders that are equipped and that have the ability to address these situations. And we would never ask for the public support on that unless absolutely needed. And I can give you examples on that we have missing or lost people that we're asking for the community to find, right? Those are things. But if we're talking about incidents where there are potential threats to other members of society, that is our job. And I would ask that you leave that up to us in general. And I think that information sharing, as long as it's the narrative that we are putting out, then that's totally fine. The problem is sometimes a narrative goes out that's either inaccurate or it's creating an unwarranted fear. And I ask that as if you're asking me for city councilors, I would say that for me, the information that we are sharing, you can push out to the people that are helping you or that support you, and then allow us to do our job.
Thank you. And then I just have one last request. When you send out press releases after some of these big incidents that we know we're getting questions from constituents, could you send those press releases to us also so that we have that whole statement from you?
Great idea. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Matilda. That's a great idea. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Comments? Any questions from the committee of the whole? Oh, Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the acting chief, Danny King, for his great explanation. And I think that this explanation will clarify a lot of points. But I feel that the same explanation needs to be given to the public. I think that it's not getting there. It's not an issue only of Salem. I think it's an issue on nationwide. That's why we see a lot of things going on nationally, because the communication is not getting. It's a group of people who feel they are not well communicated. But related to Salem and related to the incidents, my question to you is 5 weekends. It's not only 2 or 3, it's 5 weekends. I think that the year is only 3 months away, and we're seeing 5. I know we see the data, but if we continue to have the same path and we have 1 incident by weekends, it's going to be built up, and this year's might be record breaker. Based on your strategy that you mentioned, is any worry about why it's happening? I know that it's COVID related, but can you go deeply and identify if those incidents, 5 weekend consecutive that we have, they are directly related to guns, or what else? What is the model? Why? Because we've seen that in every community. COVID is nationwide, but in Salem we never seen 5 weekends in consecutive that I remember. In consecutive weekends, 5 shooting, not a minor crime, shooting, in which few people I know are being shooted by those incidents. Do you have any strategy that you can share with us that gonna be able to contain that we don't see the same thing happen next weekend? Because it's a lot of worry, even though we had the data. But I have my children living here, and every weekend I had to go to bed worried what's gonna happen next. So do you have anything to say to the public that they say, okay, this is we are working on, and we identified that this might be the motive, and we going to target it. Anyway, anything that you can share with us in that regard.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. The incidents of the 5 weekends in a row, I think that there is some, I guess I would just be asking are you talking about where we've had actual shootings, or are you talking about where we've had incidents where we've interdicted with, perhaps a call to respond to where there was shots fired?
Shooting related to shooting. I think that we have 5 shooting in 5 weekends, in consecutive weekends.
Yeah. I think for the interest of time, it's not quite 5. We've had 2 legitimate shootings since in the last, I think I want to go 4 weeks or so, and those were legitimate shootings. We had 3 victims, and we've been able to very thankfully and successfully do a good investigation and hold the people responsible. I think that there are other calls related to shootings that you could be referencing, but not where we actually had a shooting. And so I guess I'm only saying that because when we're talking about it, it could appear that you were saying that we had 5 weekends in a row where we had people shot, and that's just not the case. And so what I'll say to this, though, is that there are definitely themes that our investigators and our detectives have identified, and the members that are involved are definitely those that have criminal histories that relate to drug and gun charges. We have many of these individuals come from other cities and here, and there is a lot of conflict as it relates to drug dealing, to drug activity. And Councilor Dominguez, that is, there are some common themes, and not all of them are there, but that is a theme, and that's what we're working for directly, to put those associations together. But again, I'll say that we have had 2 actual shooting incidents within the last month, and that we were able to address them. And then I will also say it's actually the last 5. It's actually the last 5 weeks. But the other incidents, if we get called for shots fired that's investigated, those are also concerning as well. We just don't know exactly what the nature are on some of those. But let's be on the same page, because we are. We want to be able to address the individuals responsible. We believe they're not random. We believe they're associated with one another, and that ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of police effort, police investigative effort, and going a little bit beyond our traditional investigative techniques, but also community effort, right? So I'll tell you that of our incidents that we're investigating, the 5 that we were successful for, we had victim cooperation or eyewitness cooperation. The 6 that were a roadblock, and I only say roadblock because it's stopping now. We need more cooperation from individuals that are on scene and or the victims, because oftentimes there's plenty of physical evidence. Sometimes there's video evidence. There are things that put cases together, but absent a witness or a victim involvement in some of these intimate shootings, it's hard to put the cases together. So we'd be asking for our residents to trust the legitimacy of what's going on and move forward with it. But Councilor Dominguez, you and I go back a long way, and I absolutely appreciate your opinion on this. I think you know the neighborhood. I appreciate what you're saying. I just want to say that we'll work together on it. And these are not random. These are individuals that we're aware of, and we're going to be doing everything we can to keep the community safe.
Good to know, and thank you for your response. And you're perfectly right. We're coming along very long, and I'm coming from a community where we have a lot of issues. And I know that the police department is doing an excellent job. I have no question in that. I'm more worried about the narrative that we hear not only in Salem but everywhere against the police force. And if we don't work together to try to eliminate that, it's gonna be adding more and more and more. I think that I repeat myself, the communication is not being clear outside, even though we know that my social media might play a major role in that. And I think that the police department had to be proactive on that and make sure that it's more clear to the community. According to what I see, even though you say it's only two shooting, the other crime are related with firearm.
Mhm.
The last one that we had on Highland Ave had to deal with someone with a gun in the hand. It might not be the case, but that's basically what is getting out in the community. So my point is that I think that we need to get a better, clear communication to the public so we can avoid having more issue based on the fact that it's a momentum nationwide against the police force. And I always say, I keep saying to a lot of people, we have a very great police force here in Salem. That's nothing to do with what they're doing here. So, but in the other hand, when we see in a practical every weekend something happens, something going on, that's going to give them some fuel to continue to attack the police force. And the trust that we're looking for with the community is going to be weak at one point or another. But you're right. Thank you.
And I just want to say, and I didn't mean to gloss over the communication, Counselor, I agree 100%. And as we put these together in the information out and we get these to, whether it's the whatever neighborhood association is to communicate, we can do a better job with that. And I'm open to any forum that we can get this information out because I think it's vital. And I would say, Counselor, exactly what you're saying is the support that we need. So we know that, you know, there is a need for the communities to support and trust and love their officers. And I appreciate that you're recognizing that we are one of those communities, but we feel that way. As part of the Race Equity Task Force, I can tell you that I think that we've come to an agreement that there are definitely things that we can do better, right? But we are also, in many ways, strides above other communities as it relates to police-community relations.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Flynn, you have your hand up? And then Counselor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, thanks for coming tonight. You know I'm a big supporter of your department. I think your office is doing an excellent job. How can we help you out when it comes towards budget season? As far as, do you think increasing patrol officers could help? Maybe putting more beats out there on the weekends, on the times it seemed to be more crime related. Also, I'm a big supporter of community policing. Would also an increase in a budget or another line item for your community policing, would that help you out, do you think, as the warmer weather comes? Maybe an increase in the bike patrols, motorcycle patrol. Used to have the Segway years ago. I haven't seen that for a while. So that's two of my questions. Would you think an increase in budget for your staff to get more officers on the street? And as well, community policing. Do you think an increase in funds would help you there? Especially when the warmer weather comes. I'm sure it would trend more criminal activity. Just your thoughts on that, and if we could help you budget-wise.
Thank you, Counselor. And, you know, supporting the personnel budget to keep all of the divisions fully staffed and get our numbers up to our city charter of 95 is an absolute objective and goal that I will strive to in the position I'm now and the position I'll be later. So we're at 91. We'd like to be at the 95 full charter. You know, that includes, so what that means is this: if we have a full patrol and full beats in a community impact unit that is 4 strong with a supervisor and a thriving detective division that is fully staffed and a traffic division that's fully staffed, all of those assets together enable us to provide exactly what we need to provide to the community. I'll say, in addition to that, we have a narrative and a need to address our mental health clinician and increase the role of our mental health clinicians in responding to calls. And so we have one for a couple of days a week. We're looking for a full-time. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind another civilian at some point so that we have a mental health, substance abuse, behavioral health unit that is civilians that works at the bequest and with our officers in a full-time manner, right? So I don't want to sacrifice our personnel or our divisions for that. I would ask for it to be an addition. And as it relates to additional funding, You know, throughout the year, sometimes we have demands for additional police presence and we come forward for that. You know, I have not really had to do that since I've been in this seat, but we know that there are times that it's not in the operational budget. So I would ask, you know, to support if we're coming to that. I can give you a couple examples, whether it's, you know, was the anti-government activity in and around the transition of power in the elections. We didn't plan for that, but we put significant efforts based on information that we had. So yes, that is supportive to us. The CDBG money that the mayor's dedicated to us for our point bike patrols, that's important. They get out there and that is a big difference. You know, that is something that I think COVID wise was really a detriment because we couldn't get out there the way that we traditionally do. So I thank you for the support on those community policing efforts. And, you know, there is definitely other advances. So you talked about personnel. I gave you the personnel. I think that if I was to ask for a couple other things that you could support, and I know that other counselors have reached out, you know, technological advances, our radio system, you know, needs to be replaced. We know that. We're strongly and have been actively pursuing it and looking at body cams. Those come with a number that, you know, that is going to have to be digestible by the council and the mayor. And so I would say, you know, those are the types of supports that we get, but I appreciate it. And I feel as if that the council does support it. And I would just say on another note, in terms of what you could do for us in the department and for me directly, is communicate concerns directly to me. I look at the board here and I have direct communications with many of you, but not all of you. I would say if you have a concern, that's what I'm here for. And I would say, you know, those need to absolutely be part of your everyday effort to help the department operate more efficiently.
Thank you. Are you all set, Counselor? Okay. Counselor Dibble?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
It's odd. Okay, it's time for a new computer, and I apologize I'm not there in video with you. First off, I just want to thank the Chief King and the entire Salem Police Department. We're lucky to have you. You know, I'm not going to go on and on. I know you guys. We're just simply lucky to have you. Thank you for the job that you're doing. I'd like to say this was easy, but people asked me to schedule this meeting to ease their concerns. And then after I scheduled this, I got a call from about 5 more residents. So Chief, I think that your force is doing a really good job, but we need to tell the story with facts and details when it won't jeopardize the case or anything, but to get the communication out there faster so that people's minds are eased. There's, like Councilor Dominguez said earlier, there's several weekends in a row. I'd like to yield. I have a couple of questions, but I'd like to yield. I see the mayor's here, and I see the public has been waiting for a while to speak. So, Madam Chair, I kind of like to yield. I'd like to circle back with me. I have a couple of concerns, but I'd like to hear from the mayor and from the public more importantly. Not that the mayor's not important, but both equally. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we still have members of the committee with their hands up. Councillor Madore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recall that during my speech when I was sworn in as the council president, I stressed the importance of us as leaders leading with truth and facts. I have my own beliefs, but I think facts and truth are also very important and must be one of the most important factors that drive our decision making. I have been so comforted by the fact that I have been so comforted by the fact that the police is doing everything they can to collect the level of data they have shown us tonight. It actually has boosted my confidence in their ability to look at the data and adjust their policing to be even more responsive. That is a reflective effort as they continue to improve the policing practices. So I just want to say that I'm hearing that there are these stories about several shootings in a row, and I feel bad that I maybe have not been told about these incidents, but the acting chief is a phone call away, and I feel that that has been an incredible way to keep in touch with our police force. Just as Chief Butler, she is always a text and a call away when I reach out to her. And tonight we talk a lot about how the police force can improve, but as us as civic leaders, we also have to step in as partners of the police department and see how we can improve. In terms of communication, there's a lot of ways that we can improve to be better partners. So I think the facts that we have to get is straight from the chief to distribute that to the community and trust that they are doing their jobs. I fully trust our police department in doing their jobs, and I don't look for any other facts, any sources for facts, unless it's coming from the chief himself. So I have full confidence that they are handling all the recent incidents as best they can, and will continue to do so. But I think we need to really look at how ourselves as leaders can also improve as partners to the police department. And I'm so glad that the chief brought this presentation. I have learned so much, and I hope that I can have access to the slides to share with my constituents. Thanks again, Chief.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor Medora. That actually brings up a good point that we will definitely be sharing this presentation, because it is, as we've all said, has a wealth of information. So I'll make sure that it's posted along with the meeting notice on the city website. And Councilor Dibble pointed out that I did not allow time for the mayor to speak after the presentation, so I do apologize for that. So Mayor Driscoll, I don't know if you wanted to make any comments or say anything else.
Not directly. I think Chief King did an excellent job with this presentation. He was invited in to offer commentary on what's transpired. We do have a strong department. I feel very safe in our community, but we are a city, and so there certainly are activities that are troublesome. And thankfully, it's not random acts of violence. It's typically people who know each other. Oftentimes, people who are involved in activities that we'd like to not have place in our community, or individuals who know each other. Unfortunately, and you know, some sort of criminal activity takes place as a result of that relationship. You know, I'm part of this Bloomberg program, and we've had an opportunity to be to hear from folks who there's national organizations that look at crime in cities. Cities much larger than ours, right? I'm talking larger metropolitan areas. And what they often find in those places, and I think it's not dissimilar here, is there's a really small percentage of people who are committing violent crimes, and they tend to do a lot of them, right? They're in a field or an industry that leads to troublesome activity within our community. And I think that's what we have found here as well. There's a small number of people in our community, some from outside of our community, who come in and are involved in violent activities. Now, look, one shooting is one too many. We don't want any in our community. When they do occur, I think our police department is all over it. We've got strong criminal investigation detective units. We've got strong relationships within our community. I'm heartened by the fact that of the criminal activity that has happened, and it's been a spate of criminal activity earlier this year for sure. Many arrests have already been made. Many folks have already been apprehended. This is not a situation where there are random acts of violence going on and people need to feel unsafe or you know, be thinking about purchasing weapons. We need less guns in our community, not more. So I just want to reiterate my support for the work that the department's doing. I appreciate the presentation that Chief King put together. He's always a phone call away. Like many of you, I've seen some of the conversations on social media, this narrative that folks want to produce. I think it's unfortunate. We have folks who are working hard, who are doing work that sometimes has to be a little under the radar screen. We don't always necessarily, as a police department, go out and publicize every single investigative action because it's still in process. But I know many of you do reach out to the police department. We've worked with our prior police chiefs, from Chief Butler to Chief Tucker to Chief St. Pierre. We know that we've had folks who in our community are going to undertake criminal activity, and we're both concerned about rooting that out, apprehending individuals who conduct that activity. But I think most importantly, one of our department's strengths are relationships with our community. And Dennis, we probably didn't brag enough about all the work that's underway, whether it's partnerships with LifeBridge, numerous organizations within our community that sometimes aren't as strong as we are. The leader and the key agency that communicates with LifeBridge, our homeless shelter, is our police force. Key agency that communicates with neighborhood associations often. I mean, we're certainly there for service related issues, but the police department and the CIU are always at neighborhood association meetings. So I think we're having the spate of violence. We don't, we certainly don't want to encourage it. We want to do everything we can to root it out. But we're overall a city that works really hard to keep each other safe. And I hope that will continue, and certainly look forward to any other questions from committee members or others. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, just to reiterate what was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting for the agenda, the presentation, any comments from the mayor, and questions from the committee, questions from the committee as a whole, and then we'll go on to public comment. So Councilor Dibble, I'll be going back to you before we go back to public comment. Or actually, did I see Councilor Presnowski with your hand raised? Okay, if you'd like to go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to speak from some experience of my years on the police department, pointing specifically to my role as the public information officer for the police department for about 25 years, and having to lived and answered questions on many of the crises the city has seen over those past 25 years. And probably one of the most dangerous things is believing the misinformation and the rumor spreading that quickly starts when there is an incident, a major incident in the city. People begin jumping to conclusions. People begin stoking fear, and in this day and age, with the internet and Facebook, things run rampant, and all of a sudden, people are starting to fear things that aren't even happening. They're not getting the whole stories, and a lot of times they're not getting the whole stories because a lot of these things are fluid, and the police are in the process of trying to put things together. They're not in the business of quickly answering the public what is going on at every minute. It has a lot to do with letting them do their jobs and then getting the correct information, the correct answers to the public to tell them exactly what's been going on. This idea that the city is unsafe is ludicrous. Crimes come in spurts. We have trends. Things happen. We had the shooting down the point, and all of a sudden the point is a bad place. The shooting was just, we had one shooting down the point. The other shooting, and there were two, was not down the point. It was down in the Derby Street area. Our criminal investigation division, according to Chief King, we've resolved every major incident that's happened, whether it's through identification or through arrest. We've solved it. The bottom line is the police have solved those crimes. There was no shooting on Boston Street. It was reported that was a stabbing. It was a domestic incident. The shooting on Highland Avenue was not it was, from what I understand, was a BB gun that was shot at a piece of heavy equipment that was left behind Walmart, which shattered. One of the callers thought that somebody may have walked out of the woods with a shotgun and shot out the window. The police were doing their job, trying to investigate it, and all of a sudden rumors went wild about, oh my God, everybody shelter in place. There's a shooting at Walmart. What's going on? This city is unsafe. This is crazy. Again, it's misinformation. It's jumping to conclusion. It's making the police kind of detract from what they're doing in order to try to stop the spread of this information. The bottom line is we do all have access to the police department, and we can make a call over there and find out exactly what is going on before we start telling our constituents what's going on without knowing what's going on. And that's what we should be doing. We should be looking at exactly what happened. Let the police do their job, and then putting out the information that's correct, not spreading any fear. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dibble?
I see Councilor Hapworth's hand up, but I'd like to yield until we hear from the public, please, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councillor Hapworth, did you have your hand up?
I did, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Councilor Prosnewski for those words. I think it's, I think that things like shootings are scary for sure, and I think that it's scary to see these things on social media. And I think it's important right now to be very clear that social media is a great place for communication in terms of here's what's happening, here's what we know, but it's a poor place for spreading misinformation and spreading fear and live streaming from a crime scene. And I think it's important that we as elected officials take a step back, communicate thoughtfully and purposefully. And I don't think that's always happened over these last few weeks. And I just think, I thank Councilor Prosnewski for bringing that up. I think others have sort of danced around that a little bit also. I think it's just a very important thing for us all to remember and for the public to remember that information comes out sometimes in a positive way, and sometimes it doesn't come out in a positive way. And there's sometimes ways we can improve that. But there's also sometimes that information may not make it to the public right off because there's an investigation happening. So again, I just appreciate those on this call that have made that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hepworth. I'd like to, just also comment that I agree with those comments as well. We need to use caution, especially in these scenarios. We don't know fully active investigations. We don't want to encourage unsafe behavior. We don't want to, scare unnecessarily. Did I see Councilor Dominguez? And yes, I did see your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry that I get back to take the opportunity. I know we want to hear from the public, and I know so many things have been saying so far. I agree with most of the things that everyone is coming, but I'm also in the point that I feel that the communication is not being addressed. What we see in any given point in any community is that when something happens repeatedly in a community, the police force, the communication department had to address the public they call that a press release, whatever way. But if there is misinformation, it's not the public who are guilty of that misinformation. I think that is on the police force to clear that, or the authority, the mayor office, whoever, to bring out the right communication to the public. I'm saying that because I'm coming from a community where we have a lack of communication because of the language barrier. It's nothing bringing to them to bring them the truth. No one, there is not official. It's the police who have to come out and say, okay, we are investigating, we cannot give you detail, but this is the fact right here. Boom. Simple like that. The community will go back to understand that the police is doing the work. I think we are lacking that in this community, because what we hear is a lot of people talking in a different angle, and that's bring more confusion, and that bring more distrust for the police force. We need to stop it. And the only way we can stop is the police department, bring the communication department, having a press release. Now, especially now, we have the same situation nationwide. It's about time that the police force stand up and say, listen, this is what happened in our community. This is the real fact coming directly from us. We cannot give you more detail, but these incidents, the same way we had the presentation today, I think that the police had to find a channel to address the general public and let them know what's going on. And those fears that we hear from those people are legit. As a parent, I have some fear because I have my kids outside in the street. I hear a lot of miscommunication. That's right. But at the end of the day, we don't want that to happen to our family. So we need to make sure that everyone calm down. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Domingos. And Chief, if you could perhaps talk to some of those communication tools that you do have and currently use, and perhaps some additional tools that you might need, or ways that we can be helpful in that regard. I do know that a code red, for example, went out to neighbors nearby and the area of the incident on Sunday. I don't know what other communication tools can be utilized.
So I just want to say that because I draft them with Captain Ryan, that all of the incidents that we're describing right now have had press releases. But this is why this conversation is good, because we're identifying that we need to get those press releases out to more than just the press, and we can post them on our Facebook. I can send them to all of you. They are general information. We expect and hope that the media, which they do, basically describe accurately from our press releases. And so I think that this is I appreciate it, Councilor Dominguez. I think that what you're saying is we need to get those press releases out to more members other than just the media. And I think that that is something that I can work on through you, through the council, and through our neighborhood associations, and whatever other means that we come up as a group to do.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments from the committee? Okay, I'm going to go to public comment. It looks like currently we have 2 hands raised. I'll wait a second to see if any more go up. I've been writing them down in the order of which they were gone up, so I will call in that order and allow you to speak. Please address all comments through me. And Stephen Kapantis, please state your name and address for the record when to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Kapantis, 23 Wisteria Street, Salem. Just a couple of quick comments and then a question through you, Chairwoman, to the Chief. First, thank you for the presentation and the metrics. You call things random act of crime. I kind of put it in a category that would say chronic crime. We know it's there for a long time. I think the data clearly shows that the force here is very proactive, efficient, has a great plan, and has either kept crime numbers low or has diminished it year over year. On the acute side of the crime, when we have a shooting that's between 2 known people, I think the data also shows that you have been very effective. You react quickly and quickly solve those crimes. And I appreciate the actions from our department here in Salem. I also heard that there are some needs, we're 4 officers short, maybe a couple of positions on the civil side that we need. Budget season's coming up. Hopefully we see those requests made, and it's something that the city can fulfill. I heard some requests of the council, and my question, we spoke a little bit, you spoke a little bit of what the public can do, and that was kind of your opening statement. So if you could expand on what members of the public can do to also help you in reducing crime in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pantis. Chief?
Thank you. Those are great observations, and that's a great question. And one of the biggest part of how we do our job effective is to have trust and legitimacy from the citizens that we serve. And so the common see something, say something, that is as simple as it is in terms of trusting that information that you share with us, that we'll be able to act and follow up, especially as it relates to illicit activity. When we're talking about these incidents here, I absolutely know that we're at roadblock on 6 of the incidents because we need some further participation from our victims or witnesses. So that is a big part of what residents can do to help us, is to have trust in the system and have trust in the department. Intimidation of a witness is a felony. It's often more harmful to a person to be charged with that than it is for the crimes that they've committed. And so the court has made it so that people can feel comfortable about coming forward. And I know that's easier said than done, and I understand that. But the support in terms of trusting to give us information readily available is very important, and the willingness to come to community meetings and strategize with our officers. The Community Impact Unit whoever it is, the willingness to come out, and I know you are, Mr. Capenza, is very willing to come out and help. We need that from a lot more people because we want to hear that. And those forums at the meetings allow for us to take in information. And so I appreciate the question, and those are the ways that I would ask the citizenry, trust us, have your faith in us, confide in us so that we can get and address these types of crimes together.
Thank you. Next member of the public is Abushar. I'm sorry. I'm going to allow you to speak. If you could please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Fawaz Abushar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a
And you're
first.
coming in clear.
First, Madam Chair, everything I have 3 questions, and through you to whoever would like to answer it. It's good to see you all. Thank you, Chief, for being here and addressing that. I need to make a very, very short comment. I have a lot of friends in many police departments and fire departments and EMTs, etc. And I have a lot of respect for those communities and for the job they do. So whatever questions I have, I don't want it to be interpreted in the wrong way. It might not be pleasant, but it has nothing to do except with the love and respect for those hardworking people everywhere. The first question is, with the tickets that was mentioned, I read that in the paper a couple of days ago, and I did do a little looking around. And to me, it's not that Salem was the second in one sort of ticket that bothered me, because, which is the handheld. But what I noticed that Salem is one of some communities where tickets for minorities, black and brown, is way higher than the representation of those minorities in the community. And if I'm gonna take just the example of the handheld, with black people, the handheld tickets written by the Salem was about 13%, when I think the percentage of black people in the community is more like around 3 or 4%. I'm not gonna go on every kind of ticket and when it's written, but it shows a trend, and it's not unique to Salem, but sadly it is in Salem, where there are way more tickets than the representation in the community. So my question would be to the chief, why is that in his opinion? And if there is anything to be done about it. Again, it's through you, Madam Chair, and I'm gonna go with the first one, then the second after the answer to this one, so there won't be, like confusion. I get confused when things are mixed together. So if he can answer that after you.
Sorry, did you say you had other questions?
No, I do 2 more. Madam Chair, I have this one.
Okay.
So I will say this, we need to meet up, because I did an analysis of the data. I requested the data from the RMV, and I did a breakdown based on the number of tickets that we had. I've shared this result with the mayor. I've shared this with the result with members of the Public Safety Committee on the Race Equity Task Force. I have us giving more warnings to people of color than I do Caucasian. So I can tell you that I spent a lot of time on this. I made a record request to the RMV, and I will gladly sit down and go over that data with you, but it's direct opposite of the data that I did. I didn't see the article that you're referencing, so, but I will gladly sit down, because my analysis came up with something completely different, that we gave more warnings than we did citations. And by the way, we gave basically equal amount of warnings, written warnings, to citations, and we gave them basically by the demographics of the city. On issued, 83% white, 15% Hispanic, 1% African American, and on the written, the written itself a little bit different, but we had given, again, on the written warnings, proportionally more warnings to people of color. So we can talk about that. You're gonna have to call, or we'll just get connected, call the office or call me or email me, and we'll sit down and go through that data.
Well, thank you for the information. I'm not doubting it. It's just I think it was the patch who brought up the issue with this, so the paper. But anyways, the second question has to do with when you were talking about the insurrection that happened on the 6th. Was there any Salem police officers involved in the insurrection or in the break of the Capitol? Simple yes or no.
I see, Councilor.
Councilor Madore, you have your hand up.
Thank you,
President Madore, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note that we are discussing a specific matter tonight and that the question should be addressed directly through the Madam Chair. And I would prefer that we do not stray from the order before us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abhishek, do you have another question?
Actually, yes, but with all due respect to Councilor Madore, this is a discussion about the violence that happened in the city. And this has a lot to do with the violence in the city and in the country. So it is part of the same discussion. It's just a broader one. And I think the people need to know if Salem police or some of them were involved, because it does have to do with addressing the violence in the city as well. But if she wanna overrule me, she's the councilor, not me. But I think this is information that the public would like to know, and it builds more trust with the police department to know it and to know if it happened, what was done about it. So that was actually that. But again, if you want to answer it or not. The third question and the last is, under the circumstances that we are in and we are looking into, actually, I saw the finalist for the police chief, and probably like many people, I am very unhappy about it. I know some people are, but I am not, because we are in a situation in the city where things seem to be a little harder than usual, a little different than usual. And it's a time where I strongly believe somebody from Salem and from the Salem Police Department will really address the issues in a much, much better way. I could be right, I could be wrong, I honestly don't know. I'm not a decision maker, nobody is a decision maker, but I wanted, again, if through you, Madam Chair, am I in the good ballpark thinking the way I'm thinking, and does the chief, and actually I'm interested in what Councilor Krasnowski would think about this as well, considering his time and his experience with the police department. How could that be addressed, and is it really make more sense under the circumstances to have a local, and a local, I know PBD is local, but Seattle and New York and stuff is a little different. So again, that's the question or the issue. And
okay, thank you, Mr. Abhishek. As mentioned earlier, we do need to stick to the agenda at hand. The selection of police chief, and unfortunately your question was not an agenda item for this evening. I don't disagree that they're not valid questions. I just don't think they are pertinent to our conversation this evening. I do appreciate your comments and your questions and phoning in and listening tonight. I'm just going to check to see if there are any other hands up. It looks like that's it. So I am going to offer it back to the committee to see if there are any motions. Councilor Dibble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I think the good Councilor Prosnewski summed it up really nice with his decades of experience of sharing information from the police department. He just nailed it. He just came right out and said, by example of some of the recent violence issues, he just came right out and said, the police did this. This happened, and then the police did this. I think we need to hear that from our police department as well. So Conrad, I think we need to go back to work and no, I'm just joking. I think the police department does a phenomenal job, but I think we need to hear their successes. So the mayor did a nice job, and Conrad did a great job. The chief did a good job, but I'd like to hear from the chief specific, very brief detail, very, very brief, the facts and the results of the last couple of weekends that Councilor Dominguez was talking about. That on this case, we made 2 arrests. On this case, we made an arrest. You've done great, the department's done great things. I'm giving you the opportunity to please brag about what you've done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Dibble. Councilor McCarthy? Oh, sorry, Acting Chief, did you want to speak to that? Sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can answer it.
Thank you.
So I think I've mentioned, so we've talked about there in the last 4 months, October 30th, so November, December, January, and February, we're looking at 6 incidents that involved a weapon. We had identified the 2 shootings. Councilor Prosnewski, I agree. He said it exactly the way it was. We investigated it and we came up with 2 suspects in one. They've been charged. Came up with a suspect in the other. He's been charged. The other incidents, there has been a result. In one of them, there was somebody that was charged. And, you know, that is something that, again, is an investigation. And it was a charge of unlawful possession of ammunition. And so I just have to respectfully disagree. We haven't had 5 weekends in a row of shootings. I'm looking at them in front of me that we've had 6 incidents involving firearms in the last 4 months. The 2 most recent, 220 and 214, were the ones that involved that. And I think that in my press release and through the charges in my updated press release as it relates to the incident at Walmart and the abundance of caution, it was an air rifle. It was determined to be. We made a clearance of the area after a call that came in that nobody wants to get, that a window of a backhoe or window of a vehicle was shut out and the guy ran into the woods with a rifle. A call that takes precedence and seriousness above all, and an abundance of caution. We still were able to, determine that it was an air rifle that we believe, and then subsequently an investigation led to charging an individual. So I'm not sure what else. I think that we're praising it, but I can tell you that on all 3 of those incidents, there have been official press releases that gave every one of those details that I just gave.
Thank you, Chief King. I think it's important to reiterate that we repeat the correct information. It has been said a few times tonight that there have not been 5 consecutive weekends of shooting. So again, that communication piece to make sure that we are repeating the facts and the data that we're seeing and hearing and reading about. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to circle back to the order that were the reason why we're here is basically, a colleague brought in some questions and concerns which he received from citizens. And obviously, as a counselor, when I receive those calls from citizens, my first call is to the chief or someone in his department or someone in the command staff. Over it's been way too long. My 13 years on the city council, I've had the pleasure of having direct communications with Chief St. Pierre, Chief Tucker, Chief Butler, and now Acting Chief King. And just, I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but I just want to give Acting King, Chief King, the utmost respect, because I know he made a decision to withdraw his name for consideration for being chief.
and it was for his own personal reasons. And I give him the utmost respect for doing that. And as a former colleague of mine taught me, it's family first. And he made that decision based on a family decision. And so we all have to respect that and move forward from that. And knowing that, Chief, thank you. That being said, 13 years ago, the Point neighborhood had its first meeting. I was in attendance. I was newly elected. I have been in attendance of Point neighborhood meetings for the last 13 years with former Councilor Cacciato for the last 13 years. I can't even count the number of meetings I've been to over 13 years, but I will tell you at almost every single one of those meetings, there has been a member of the police force there, from the community impact unit to, I was at the first meeting that Chief Tucker showed up and they referred to him as El Jefe. So that is what we're talking about. And unfortunately, that's what's been lost a little bit during this whole pandemic is the one-on-one dealings, the direct communication. I mean, we have the Point neighborhood now, we have Zoom meetings and they're able to attend, but what's missing is when a constituent or a concerned citizen will come up to me or come up to a member of the police force and they're able to go outside into the lobby to have an out of the room conversation with a member of the police force to talk about the issues that's going on, because they don't feel comfortable talking in public because for whatever reasons they don't want to say things in front of their friends, their neighbors, but they feel more comfortable in going out. So I think that, a lot of it has to do with communication. And I will be the first one to say that the incidents over the last couple of weeks, I've either phoned or texted Chief King, and he's gotten back to me. He gave me the heads up before one of the arrests. He's like, I just know you've been really diligent in asking me questions about this. And now Chief's going to wave his arms to make his lights go back on because they keep going off because he's sitting in his office quietly. Gotta love those green buildings. But the fact of the matter is, it's all about communication and opening up that window of trust. So when you look at the order, it talks about what we as counselors can do to help the police department. One is open up that line of communication, whether it's with the chief, whether it's with a captain, whoever you feel comfortable in the ranks of the police department talking to, and hopefully it would be the chief, because he's the one that ultimately speaks for the department, whoever the chief is going to be down the road, and have those open communications. It was a couple of years ago during an election season when you look back in the data, there was another incident, and I was being called out on social media for lack of response. My response was, it's an ongoing police investigation. The police are handling it. They've asked me not to comment because it's an ongoing investigation. They don't want to jeopardize the investigation. As a counselor, that is your role. When we went into council chambers and we all raised our hands and swore our oaths, they did not give us a badge. They did not give us a gun. They gave us the ability to be a voice. They gave us the ability to represent our constituents thoughtfully and considerately, and also realizing that the police has a job to do in a role. And as we've seen from the metrics that the police, Chief King has laid out in front of us, they do their job very well. And with respect to what our additional jobs are, is people have touched on it and alluded to it. Our job is not to go on Facebook and post about an incident that is happening while it's going on. It is short-sighted and irresponsible to think that someone posting on Facebook during when an incident is going on is going to help the matter. If their concern is their constituents, then they merely need to say there's an ongoing issue, please try to be safe. Jeopardizing the police department by posting pictures of how they're deploying themselves and how they are organizing themselves to combat a potential threat is irresponsible and is totally in not the realm of what we as counselors should be doing. So you really, as counselors, we all have to take a big, hard look at what we do and how we're asked to perform our jobs. And our jobs are our support system for the police department. We've all talked today about how we can support the police department. I can honestly tell you, for every budget cycle in the last 14 years that I've been involved with, I have never once voted against any appropriation for the police department, nor will I ever. We've always tried to work with the mayor's office to try to bring back as the complement of the police force. When I joined the council 13 years ago, the fire department was down 13 bodies, and I think the police department may have been down 8 or 10. And I'm sure that 2 years ago, the police was at a full complement. And the reason it's down right now is because of retirements and trying to get people through the academy to get them back in on the streets. And we'll do everything we can to make sure that's going to happen. But we have to go back to what the order was. The order is, how do we make the people realize it's safe? Unfortunately, we don't control the media. The media likes, unfortunately, events sell papers. And unfortunately, when there's an horrific event such as a shooting or anything, something similar, that sells papers because it makes the headlines. Unfortunately, 2 or 3 days after the incident has been resolved, that doesn't make the front page. That makes the third page or the fourth page. And it's the, oh, by the way, the police happened to catch the, and it's no disrespect to the media. It's just the fact that that's the way it works. So it's our job as councils to make sure that we, get those press releases and get them out. And we all need to do a better job, myself included. But we all have to realize what our roles are and how we do that. But I will just say, the metrics bear it out tonight that the police department over the last bunch of years is doing a great job. Yes, there has been an uptick. I think it's basically a direct response to a direct result of COVID. We're all experiencing it. We all are having that COVID breakdown or whatever it is. And you're seeing it. But I just want to say, with regards to the order that's in front of us, I want to thank the chief for coming in. I've had a conversation with him recently, and it's made him and his department refocus and relook at the metrics and understand where they need to, allocate their resources on a day-to-day. So I think that was good. But as counselors, I think we have to realize that we're here to support them in what they do and how they, in our actions can directly affect how their ability and what they do. And we have to respect them and allow them, give them the space for what they need to do, and realize that our job is to support them, not while it's going on, after the fact. And sometimes it can be just as simple as putting out the press release or, going to a neighborhood meeting if the police can't be there, and basically saying, listen, I had that conversation with the chief. He's aware of what's going on. Here's what we did. Here's what we learned. And to make people feel safe. Because, I've been living in Salem for the last 27 years. 27 years. My kids grew up here. My kids went to Salem High School. I feel safe here. I can't say enough for what the police department does. I think I first met Chief King was probably one of those community impact units. The first time I got elected, probably down the point at the On Point building. And I think he looked at someone and said, who is this guy? Because I had no idea who at that time, Lieutenant King was. And he had no idea who I was, but over the last 14 years, we've forged a friendship that I can call him up on his cell phone, and when everything was going on last year, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on, and when everyone was talking about defunding the police department, and we were in the middle of a budget, and we voted the police budget the way it was. And it became evident that a group of individuals that had every right to march in the world, and I will never deny their right to march, were going to decide to march to my house. It was Chief King who reached out to me and told me not to worry, told my family not to worry, and to make sure that, we vacated our house, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, in order to make sure that the situation de-escalated itself and my family would be safe. And that's what we did. And he guaranteed me that my house would be safe, and it was. And I forever will go to the bat for the Salem Police Department for the actions of that day. And I'm getting a little emotional. I hate that when I do that. But I just want to say that the police department, what we as counselors, what this order is about is what we as counselors can do, and it's to support them in every way and get the information out. And I've spoken way too much on this. Thank you, Chief, for everything you and your department does.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. On that note, we're coming up at 9 o'clock. I would be open to entertaining any motions. Any comments from the committee? Counselor Marcillo?
I might need some help with this because I'm not sure if there's an action to go back other than reporting that we've met to discuss this. And
Yeah, so I think one thing that with the fabulous presentation that was put together and the amount of work that was put in there, we can move to receive and file that, make sure it gets posted on the website. And yeah, and then dismiss back to council.
back to council. I'll move them. Whatever that was, yes.
Second.
Second, okay. Counselor Dibble, you have your hand raised, or I guess is under discussion.
Yes, I did. Not to interrupt because I'm in agreement. I'd like to move that we send a letter of thank you to the entire Salem Police Department from our city council and let a vote be taken to support that.
Okay, so it's a separate motion. So I'll go back to Counselor Marcillo's motion to receive and file the presentation from Acting Chief King. And to dismiss the matter from committee. No further action. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And seconded by Domingo. Dominguez, Counselor Dominguez. Okay. Do we have to take a vote on those motions, or is it roll call vote? Okay. Alphabetically, I don't have that. Okay. Counselor Dibble.
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yes, thank you. Counselor Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Marcillo.
Yes.
And Counselor Presnowski.
Yes.
And myself is a yes, so that's 5 yeses, matter carries. And Counselor Dibble, could you please repeat your motion? It was the move to send a letter of gratitude.
Yeah, very good, Madam Chair. A simple letter of thank you to the entire Salem Police Department for the excellent job that they're doing.
Okay, move to send a letter of thanks to Police Department for the
And I'm
job they
sorry,
are
that would be a
doing.
letter from our city council.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Sorry. For it to be a letter from the full council, would we need to refer, that would be the motion.
I'll welcome that friendly amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and roll call, Steve. I'm sorry, Counselor Dibble. I wrote down
Yes.
first names.
Yes.
Counselor Dominguez.
Yes.
Counselor Marcillo.
Yes.
Counselor Presnowski.
Yes.
And myself is a yes. That's 5 yeses. Thank you. Do I have any other motions?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Oh, wait, I think Chief King.
I will say thank you, but I was just motioning to
And I will repeat the thank you very much for your time and the information presented tonight. I think we all agree that this was extremely helpful, and we are excited to continue working forward and help, and do appreciate the work that the department is doing. So thank you.
And I do speak on behalf of all of them. I appreciate it. And I'd be remiss to say I don't deserve the accolades that Council McCarthy gave me, but the department does. So I thank you. And I thank you for having me.
Thank you. And on that note, the vote called for adjournment, seconded by Councilor Marcillo. Do we do a roll call for that too? Yes, okay. Councilor Dibble.
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo.
Yes.
Counselor Brzezinski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. That's 5 yeses. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.